Hi, Chris.
Hi,
How are you, man?
good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thanks for willing to do this.
Always a pleasure.
I haven't seen you do too many interviews, like mostly about your voiceover stuff in depth very much.
I don't do a lot of those. There's so much. It gets turned over so quickly.
Hmm.
There's so much out there and so many people to interview. Um, when they remember, I happily chat about anything. You know,
Okay.
so it was a great time for me, and I made such good friends in the industry. So it was. And every once in a while, I still do a voiceover.
Mhm. So I know in on the topic of voiceover too that your first uh, ever kind of VO job that you had was with Francis Sternhagen.
Oh my God! I fantastic research. Absolutely. It was for a drive against drugs that they were doing, and it was record recording. So it was voiceover, and then they were doing, what do they call it today? Recreations. So
Yeah.
they would have a film recreation with the voiceover that's going on in the story. So we did a whole mess of those, and I later got to see Frances Sternhagen in Driving Miss Daisy on Broadway, and she was just tremendous. And she was lived in and around New Rochelle, New York, which is where I lived at the time.
Mhm.
But that was my first professional gig. I was scared shitless, about 16 and a half years old. Like, wow, I'm over my head, I guess. Here we go.
Yeah. What kind of other VO jobs did you have while you were in New York then?
Um, it's funny you ask. I didn't have a lot of voiceover jobs, but I had radio work. I
Okay.
have a partner that I'm still working with to this day. We were the morning comedy team on WPLJ FM, which is a ABC FM affiliate in New York City, on the Jim Kerr show from 1979 to 1981. So we did comedy that was recorded on carts, which looked like 8-track tapes. So we weren't in the studio in the morning, but we could do whatever we want. And they were very kind to PLJ and Jim Kerr. I'm still in touch with many of the disc jockeys. And Jim and I met at an improv company. That's basically my background when I got out of college. Is I found a group called the First Amendment in New York City. They're a terrific improv company. And within a month of joining the classes, they put me on stage. And I still teach improv comedy. I have a company here in Indianapolis. We're also online. I'll talk about that later. But I'm 68, doing what I was doing before I was 18. So I feel very, very lucky.
Mhm. And so when you moved to LA in 1989, how did you get into SAG?
I had been in SAG since 1977.
Okay.
Um, one of those odd moments, you had to be there. I was coming back from unemployment in New York City on the Upper East Side on 86th and 3rd Street. It's a camera crew across the street. I kind of wandered over there. I'm not working. This looks interesting. I'm an actor. And there's a lady with a clipboard, so I knew to kind of stand near her because she would probably have information. And she just turns to me. She goes, would you like to be interviewed for the Daily News, which is still a newspaper in New York City? I said, yeah, sure, no problem at all. She said, great, 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 come on over here. She says, we're gonna film it because it might turn it into a commercial too. But it was for a page two kind of thing where they said, we asked New Yorkers today, um, and they would have pictures of 3 New Yorkers, and they would ask the question, they would print our answer. They asked something about what would you do to speed up the morning rush hour, and I gave some pithy answer about selling subway tokens outside of the subway itself, and which they do now, by the way. And they had me sign a whole mess of paperwork. Kind of not know what I'm signing. She goes, in case this goes anywhere and we do anything with TV, and so 2 days later, I'm one of the people they picked to put in the newspaper. Oh, that was cool. Could buy a couple of papers, show my mom, tell my friends. But a day and a half later, I get a contract in the mail from the Screen Actors Guild that basically said, they had decided that I was one of the clips that they filmed that they wanted to show on television. And here's the great thing. And if I wanted to, I could join the Screen Actors Guild. I was an unemployed actor. So I borrowed at that time, and all you actors out there who are listening, $600 entrance fee to get into the Screen Actors Guild. And that's cheap. It's, close to, I don't even want to tell you how many times that now. And because of that, I said yes to an interview. I didn't have to sign the contract because they give you one for free. You can do a gig and not have to, the second gig you do, you have to join the union. But I was an out of work actor, and all of a sudden, I'm now in the Screen Actors Guild because of this silly daily news commercial in New York City. And that changed everything because at a very early age, I was able to see going to auditions that, union only, even not having a lot of TV credit at that time, because it said Screen Actors Guild around that little card. So very, very, very lucky. I walked into my luck that day.
And so when you did get to LA, then was the first thing a sorority house massacre too?
In Los Angeles?
Yeah.
The first thing I did was in LA was working with Jim Wynorski, and what great fun that began. Doing these 80s kitsch horror movies, that were kind of comedy laden, and babes running around and scary, rant kind of stuff. But some of the best times I had were working with Jim Wynorski, the film director, and Fred Olin Ray, and later on from that, Richard Gabai and even Gary Graver. These were people who were lifers at what they did, much like a theater company. You do it because you love it more than anything else. These guys love film so much, and you fall into sort of a family. And I wound up working a whole hell of a lot with those folks, and it was great fun. Thanks to the wonders of Facebook, us old timers still stay in touch with each other to this day.
And what was your experience on the Guyver live action movie?
Fantastic. I just, can't say enough about my time on the Guyver. First of all, if you don't know who Steve Wang and Screaming Mad George are, go Google it right. Don't pause this and go Google who those people are right now, because they're artists and geniuses. And I didn't know the Guyver, that it was from a Japanese manga and animation, and that they would do a live action version of this. And in fact, improvisation was a lot about the audition, because we weren't in the Zoonoid suits. They had stuntmen following us around in rehearsal to kind of see how we walk, to bring our real body walk into that stuff. But it was, come on, just shall we name the people I was working with on that movie? From Mark Hamill to, even better, to Jimmy J.J. Dynamite Walker and Spice Williams and Michael Berryman and Vivian Wu. I'm an old man now. You can't quiz me on names. That's unfair. Jack Armstrong. But Steve Wang and Screaming Mad, they're both visionary directors. And I mean, George is such an incredible, was a visual artist and created that giant Zoonoid puppet in the end. And Steve honed his mastery over at Stan Winston, working on the Predator and all of that kind of stuff. And both their physical artwork on these creatures were unbelievable. So to be a part of that was B-movie history. You don't know you're kind of in this genre. It was a gig for me. I was an actor. It was fun. I met some great people. It was I had fun. That's what I was. Hopefully, I brought to everything I did. Like, this is great. I always tell my students now, I'm old and I'm having far more fun than you are. I said, you got to catch up to me and having fun to fun.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is the case throughout your whole career where you got the most starstruck with who you were working with?
certainly Sigourney Weaver took my breath away.
Mm.
And not just because I'm nose to nose with her for the most of the day in the scene, but because she's such a terrific actor, a wonderful woman, and the causes she stands for, and her talent, and she's elegant, and it was like movie star time. You know, you're kind of like, oh, I'm here now. You know, here's the level I'm working with. But it also worked in a way that might not be the same to a lot of the listeners. I worked 2 fabulous episodes of Ghetto Life with Chris Elliott, and Chris Elliott's dad was Bob Elliott from the comedy team of Bob and Ray that was on radio in New York when I was growing up. So I'm working with Bob Elliott, you know, who was an influence on my comedy career. So to be able to get to work with so many great people. I mean, I got to work with Danny DeVito, who is just one of the greatest people to work with, and the late Raymond Burr on the Perry Mason movies, and I got to do a lot of iconic stuff too. You know, I turned into Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm.
I get neuralized by Agent J. I get killed by Lois Lane. I'm second in command. I'm in command of the Predacons for the Transformers. I said, I have led a very interesting fantasy life, you know, and I've been fortunate, you know. I'm very grateful for the time and the fun I've had and the fun I'm still having with this. I get to meet a lot of great people, and it's folks like you who love what we do and keep our stuff alive. I'm always stunned. You never know who you touch. That's what I always tell my students.
Yeah.
You know, just do your work and have fun, because you have no idea who you're touching. You know.
Oh, this was moving ahead, but did you get any interaction with Jim Carrey on Yes Man?
Very little, because he was working the physical stuff, and they never bring you into the minute they need to shoot you.
Yeah.
But he was doing some shtick in rehearsal, and I was standing by because we were doing close-ups, and we kind of caught each other's eye, and I went, "Very Warner Brothers," and he smiled at me and laughed because he understood that we had both watched a lot of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck growing up to understand the physical comedy he was doing. But he was nice. Carrey, you know, usually on movies of that stature, you don't actually hang with the stars,
right?
But you don't. But then again, you're always surprised when the people you work with are so open to working with. You know, they figure, well, if you're here, you must be good because you went through a litany of people to get here in front of camera with me. So that's what I always would say to people. I said, I do a lot of work because I've done a lot of work. Because you look at my resume, you see who I've worked with, and somebody goes, "Well, fuck you." Oh, I don't know if you're listening.
Yeah,
he must be good. Look who he's worked with. You know, it's a funny thing. If you just do your work, well, the answer is people will notice or they won't. You know, so you might as well just do your work and enjoy that, and that's where the joy is from. Whether you get the gig or not is, and by the way, I have a bad back, so I have to kind of stand up and sit down every once in a while, but I'll move the screen with me. But it's not about the getting the job. It's about being in the room to do the work. The audition is the job. Because one day I did a lot of television stuff too. And I'd walk in, there'd be 7 or 8 of the same big guys in the room. It'll be the same group of us. And we joke, "Hey, Bob, how you doing? Hey, Fred, nice to see you. Whose turn is it? I still got the last one. I think it's your turn, Pete." You know, that kind of, it was never against each other. And certainly in the voiceover world, we were never in competition with each other, because a lot of those shows had so many roles that everybody got the swing of bat. And that's what happened. And, I'm a big baseball fan, by the way, that they just agreed. So that's why I'm making this reference. But I got the swing of bat a lot. And it was great. And I was the new guy too. So I walked in with more of a TV background and a stage and a comedy background, as opposed to a voiceover background when I first started voiceovers. At least in the Los Angeles version.
Yeah. And that was with did it start with Space Strikers?
You were so spot on, son. I'm gonna have to ring the I'm ringing the comedy bell here. That's yeah. It started with Space Star. Admiral Malco, a shark, where I got to say, like set a course, that kind of, and I wound up doing probably the most famous character that I did was Skybite in Transformers. I wound up a shark creature became my. I can't tell you about those fans. Those Transformer fans are some of the best fans in the world too. I've had the pleasure of not only going to England a few times at their Transformers convention, but put together an improv company, my own improv Transformers company out in London that we performed at one of the conventions a couple of years ago. So yeah, this stuff has opened up for me into just a whole new career in Act 3 at this point. So yeah. I kind of sit in I'm in Indiana now, which I call the Comedy Witness Protection Program. And life is just slower and quieter, and it's really okay. Because fine young folks like you come hunting old wizards in the back of the cave like me, for a couple of questions.
Yeah. Well, around that same time would have been the Street Fighter 2 movie.
I grunted for about a day, because it was mostly fight efforts that time. But again, I'm old, son. I don't know how big Street Fighter is. I know it's a gig. They said you're doing Street Fighter 2, and I went, Street Fighter 1 must have done well, because this is Street Fighter 2. Again, did I now know that Sagat was iconic as a character? No. Because if you do, your ego gets all stupid, If you think what you're doing is important, you've made a severe mistake. If you just do the stuff and it's fun, you decide whether it's important or not me.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's work. To me, it's like 9 o'clock. Let's go. I got my coffee. I'm ready to do voiceovers. Wait, you mean I can have a job and be done by 11 o'clock? I think I like this job.
Yeah.
Again, always grateful for the opportunities that I got to play with some amazingly talented people out in LA.
Mm-hmm. And I know with a lot of the anime that you worked on, that Kevin Seymour directed a lot of it.
Jenny. And I can't tell you why I call him Jenny. It's a long story. But Kevin was great. Kevin loved what he did. And, all those people, Magnitude 8, Lesson Mary Claypool, and Joe Ramersa, and that whole gang up there was terrific. And Kevin was a blast to work with and easy. And if you didn't get it, say, don't worry, you'll get that. We were in a room, I used to call it the refrigerator. It was a booth at Magnitude 8 that I swear to you was like a shrinking contestants booth of an old 50s, radio show.
Mm-hmm.
But the caliber of people they got in that booth and that worked for Kevin Seymour, and I couldn't make the memorial because I had already left California, but he'd always call. And there'd always be something. And he'd always say, don't worry, I'll get you next time. And once you worked for these were family, the same with the B-movie stuff and certainly the anime stuff in that community. You play poker with these people, each other's, the kids grow up. It becomes familial. My 23 years in California, just wasn't that. I got very lucky wherever I go. I either fall into a family or I create one, because you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. And I certainly got surrounded by some amazingly talented voiceover artists. Steve Bloom, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, Richard F. Carr. I'm going to forget everybody, and then Wendy Lee, the names will come back. There's just so many people I could list. Steve Kramer, Kirk Thornton. I'm forgetting 3,000 names on that list now. I always thought I was the lucky one, pal.
Okay.
I'm just an old hack. I'm an old vaudevillian. I just do what I do. They bring me in for plenty usually.
Yeah, I've talked to most of that group, and is there like much of a highlight with working with Bridget Hoffman too?
Yeah, great fun. I mean, there wasn't a clunker in the group, Leah Sargent, you know, again, you start to remember all the people you've forgotten. No, we had a great time because I know the line is cliche, but we were not doing rocket science. We were doing an American version of a Japanese, you know, favorite animation. And if you just had fun, that's what I was taught as a young actor. Just do your craft, have a good time. Are we taking this shit too seriously? No, we don't take it too seriously. You can't walk in there with your training. You walk in there, if a line from the great Kurt Vonnegut short story, "Who am I this time?" You walk in there with that attitude, they tell you. My students are always blown away and said, when you go to an audition, you wouldn't know what you're auditioning for. I go, no, why should I? They'll tell me when I get there. They already know I can do it. They brought me in. So don't you understand that they know you already? So improv training just taught me to go, all right, what do you need? Let's go. Let's work it out. I just found it's a much more fun and organic way to work because you're really in the moment. You can go, well, that sucked. Let me try this now, okay? And that Tony, I forget Tony's last name. See, names are coming back to me right now, Chris.
Tony Oliver.
Tony Oliver, I love Tony Oliver, absolutely. And Bang Zoom Entertainment, and the all the little hovels we worked together in. It was, you know, if there ever was halcyon days, going to look at the manga on the video of VHS on the shelves of Tower Records. It was some, you know, that time, that commercial that Seth Rogen and Paul Rudd talk about with the potato chips. It was one of those golden times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what those times were to me. Absolutely.
Well, with anime, what do you think was the case where you had to get the like darkest, most emotionally involved headspace for?
A series called Blackjack.
Yep.
Sort of about a renegade doctor, you know. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde were a renegade doctor who was the most brilliant surgeon in the world. Well, you know, sort of like Stephen Strange without the cape a little bit.
Right.
But I you know what, I can't remember specifically if it was my wife, it was my daughter, and I had to get someone there dying for the operation. And it was very emotional. It was the kind of thing where if I don't know how I'm feeling after I do the thing, I know I was present because I wasn't trying to act. I was just trying to be present to the words and let it affect me. The stuff I say to my students all the time. Just open your heart and just talk. Just let it affect you. And it was great. I remember just, again, I always knew, Chris, that I wasn't the most technically proficient one in the room, that these guys had been doing. While I was doing stage and doing comedy and doing clubs, they were doing voiceovers. But I knew that you get me in that room and you give me the technique down, that the acting part of it, not a problem. So not a problem. Like, I'll give you everything I've had, you know, and I'm sure that's what kept me around. I was fun. I'm an idiot. You know, they kept, you know, you laugh, but they kept writing for Skybite, making them weirder and weirder because they knew it was me in there. Until one day, the end of the script, it said Skybite sings. And I went, there's nothing here. He said, yeah, you're going to make it up.
Oh.
To this day, they make me sing at conventions, a stupid little ditty. But you know what? How stupid people remember. You never know who you touch. So, yeah, bring on the song. You want me to wear the funny hat? Absolutely. 1987, I did a national commercial in drag with Joe Piscopo. We were the East German Women's Olympic swim team. Are you kidding me? Absolutely. Whatever you need as a performer in a comic.
Oh.
If any of you youngins are listening out there, do it all. Do it all. Because then you'll have a bookload of memories at the end. Someone will be interested in reading it. I promise you.
Well, with the characters that you played in Digimon, then who do you think you have the most affinity with?
You know, Meramon has the saddest arc. Whamon is goofy and Grizzlymon is goofy, but the Meramon is, you know, had a point of view, had a beginning, a middle, and an end. I think he ends a very heroic death, if I remember correctly. You know, again, Chris, I'm going to keep saying, I'm an old man. I have to start to, you know, I don't remember some of these readily sometimes, but I do remember Meramon fondly, and I remember us doing an episode of Transformers called Skybite Saves the Day. It never got to air in the United States because it was about a building falling down, and it was happening right at 9/11 as the buildings were coming down.
Oh,
So we recorded it, never aired it. I got to see it at a convention for the first time. And it was like, yeah, they couldn't have shown that in 2001. Are you kidding me? You know, so yeah, I think those were the most interesting or the most dramatic that I've had. Certainly the Blackjack. There probably were other ones that, oh yeah, I remember that. You know, but you do so many, and that is not just an ego thing. At this point, you forget. You forget, and all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, and you'll have that moment where the memories will flood back in, like the names, like Tony Oliver. You know, how can I forget Tony Oliver? I'm old. That's how I can forget. That's how that happens now. I hope, my friend, that when you are 68, I hope, my friend, first of all, you get to 68. You never know in this world, but that you are doing exactly what you want to be doing, you know, and that you're like, you can look back and go, yep, I became the man I said I was going to become.
mm-hmm.
Or woman, or, you know, any gender. I'm not being a solo here, just the person. Go out and be the person you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody, they're going to judge you good or bad. Just remember that. And if they don't like what they hear about you, they'll make shit up. Okay? Correct. So go live your life, because they're going to make shit up about you anyway. Let them make it up. I learned in the radio business 1,000 years ago from Nick Traboni, no news is bad news. You know, let them talk about you.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you this, Chris, no matter who you ask about me, it'll either be, oh, Pete, or oh, that asshole, really? It will be one or the other, I promise you. It won't be, who are you talking about? Don't leave that impression in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Make a big splash in the pool. Get everybody wet. Are you doing, let me ask you a question. You doing what you love?
Yeah, I really enjoy doing interviews.
Don't stop.
Yeah.
keep interviewing. And, you know, anytime you want another one, or if there's someone, you know, let's get you all the interviews you want. I'm 68. You're only going to get 15 good more years of me. So you might as well take advantage of this now. Because, you know, 83, I'm going to be at the nursing home crapping in my pants, hoping it's pudding day. You know, until then, let's do this together, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? And thank you for, and I know everybody said on behalf of all the voiceover folks who until recently, thanks to conventions, everything, you know, kind of lived in anonymity, but now fans are getting to know the people and getting to know them personally. And I just think it's great. So from us, thank you for caring about the work we do and getting it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And to all the fans listening in, man, just support your local artists. Go to your local theater. Anybody who's local, support each other right now, because that's how we grow together. All right. Like and subscribe and hit his little bell over here. And that way you'll get noticed about when his new videos go up. You understand how to do that? Okay. Don't make me come there. I know Santa Claus personally. All right. He's starting to make lists already. All right. There we go. There's your you know, tutorial for the day.
Well, I was wondering too, what made you leave Los Angeles?
My mom got sick and was slowly succumbing to dementia, and really needed someone there with her full time, in the sense that I could get over 2 or 3 days a week. My brother works very hard and is on the road most of the time, and, you know, was taking care of her financially. But what she also needed was someone to be there and, you know, make her laugh and do what I did when I was 5 years old. So I changed my whole life to get back home to her. Also, at the time, that's over 10 years ago, I was dealing with a prescription painkiller addiction that I'm 10 years free from now. So it was time to leave LA and right the ship. And boy, did I, you know. got home, was able to take care of her for a couple of years. Started on this convention tour from Cinema Wasteland to Automobile, Assembly to TF Nation to, Indie PopCon. There was a whole market out there that said, hey, we like you. And the teaching started again. Now I have 2 improv workshops. And if you want to know anything about it, boys and girls, if you go to Breakfast Anytime Improv on YouTube, you'll see our YouTube channel. We do comedy at least once a week. Working with Jim Brownell, my old ABC partner, and Peter Spellos, lowercase, gmail.com. Give us a write. Give us, stay in touch. Let us know what you like out there. Because we all got to support each other. So like I said, Chris, send me all your information so I can get your name out there and we can all do this together.
Well, you touched on it already, but my final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
2 words. That's it. He cared. I give you a paragraph, but nothing beats that.
Yeah.
If you remember that, it'll touch somebody a little differently, but he cared.
What do you want people to take away from your performances, like in anime specifically?
It's fun I was having.
Okay.
Yeah, like he sounds like he's having a great time. You're right. If that came across, I'll tell you one thing. If you go to a movie and it really sucks, the first thing you go is, holy cow, the acting in this movie was so bad. But if it's really good, you never use the word acting. You go, oh, when his sister died, I was so sad. Can you believe the car hit her? You talk about it like it happened to your friends. Mm-hmm. Well, I just want people to remember that, man, what he did was fun, whether it was Bureau of Alien Detectors or on screen with Will Smith and Men in Black, or I did 3 years on American Dreams on NBC, or any one of the tiny little, things that we did in that little refrigerator at Magnitude 8 of anime that I can't remember, which were just as enjoyable as anything I ever did, because I got to work with people who loved what they did. Mm-hmm. And, to be a part of that is like, you'd eat together. There's always that. I'll leave you with that. And the theater was one of the great things as a kid, because we were all misfits. But with the theater, you worked all day together, and then you ate together, and then you went back to rehearsal together. It was this great ensemble that taught me ensemble. And where I've been able to go, I've been able to build companies. And finally, the train ends here in Indianapolis for me. So I will leave the legacy here. And what we built here is a small core community of actors who care about each other. We're doing fun stuff and raising money for charity, and get online twice a week and are goofy, 18 to 76 is the age differences in my group. So we are covering a lot of bases here. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of different comedy, but just keep what you're doing, my friend. And thank you for having me on. I truly appreciate it. After all this time, it's nice to know that people still remember. Boy, you did your homework. I'm gonna wag that finger at you. You absolutely did your homework. Yeah. But thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'll be sure to send it to you once I have it up as well.
Yeah, please do. That would be great.
Thank you.
All right, man. Chris, take care. Be well, and send me all that information. All right.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Don't forget. All right. Take care.